When the pilot collapsed at 30,000 feet, panic filled the cabin. Then a 14-year-old black girl in row 9 screamed, "I can fly." Nobody believed her. They saw only a child. But her hidden aviation skills and her father's training would prove that courage and knowledge have no age limit. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The bustling Charlotte Douglas International Airport hums with typical travel chaos. Announcements echo through speakers. Coffee shops overflow with bleary-eyed passengers clutching oversized cups. At Gate 47, boarding is underway for Atlantic Airways Flight 2847 to Seattle. A steady stream of passengers shuffles down the jetway. Among them is Amara Jenkins, a 14-year-old black girl with her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, wearing a purple hoodie and carrying a worn backpack decorated with aerospace stickers that nobody seems to notice. She clutches her boarding pass and phone, looking like any other unaccompanied minor traveling alone. A gate agent in her 40s, efficient and friendly, waves her over with an overly bright smile. "Sweetie. Are you traveling by yourself today?" she asks, her voice taking on that particular tone adults use when speaking to children they assume need extra help. "Yes, ma'am. I'm going to Seattle to visit my aunt," Amara responds politely, her voice steady and mature beyond what the agent seems to expect. The gate agent speaks slowly, as if to a much younger child. "Okay, honey. We're going to make sure someone keeps an eye on you on the plane. Do you have everything you need? Snacks, something to do?" Amara pats her backpack. "I'm all set. Thank you." The agent pins a lanyard with UM tag on Amara's hoodie. "There we go. This lets everyone know you're an unaccompanied minor. The flight attendants will take good care of you, sweetie." Amara accepts this with a patient smile, though there's a flicker of something deeper in her eyes, a maturity and knowledge that goes completely unnoticed. As Amara walks down the jetway, she passes business travelers absorbed in their phones, families wrangling children, an elderly couple moving slowly with matching rolling bags. Nobody gives her a second glance beyond the occasional sympathetic smile adults give to kids traveling alone. Inside the aircraft cabin, the organized chaos of boarding is in full swing. Passengers struggle with overhead bins, flight attendants guide people to their seats with practiced efficiency, and the smell of recycled air and cleaning products fills the space. Amara makes her way down the aisle, passing rows of seats until she reaches row 9. Her assigned seat is 9C, the aisle seat. She efficiently stows her backpack under the seat in front of her, pulls out her phone and a thick textbook, then settles in, immediately appearing absorbed in her reading. A flight attendant named Jessica, mid-30s with a kind face and tired eyes from too many early shifts, notices the UM tag and stops beside row 9. "Hi there. I'm Jessica. I'll be checking on you during the flight, okay? If you need anything at all, you just press this button." She demonstrates the call button with exaggerated slowness. "Thank you," Amara says, glancing up briefly before returning to her book. Jessica peers at the cover, trying to read the title, but it's positioned in a way that makes it difficult. She assumes it's probably a young adult novel or maybe schoolwork. In reality, Amara is reading Advanced Aircraft Systems and Emergency Procedures, but the worn library cover obscures the title. Her eyes scan the pages with the intensity of someone who has read this material dozens of times, someone who understands every technical term and concept within. A middle-aged white woman in business attire, Karen Whitmore, settles into seat 9B, the middle seat. She glances at Amara with that mixture of mild concern and condescension that often appears when adults see unaccompanied children in public spaces. "Hello, dear," she says warmly but with an undertone of someone who thinks she's being helpful. "Are you traveling all by yourself?" "Yes, ma'am," Amara responds, polite but brief, hoping to return to her reading. "Oh my," Karen continues, settling her large purse under the seat. "You're so brave. I could never let my daughter travel alone at your age. Are you going to see family?" The question comes with an assumption that this young girl surely couldn't be traveling for any other reason. My aunt in Seattle, Amara confirms, offering a small smile before pointedly looking back at her book, a universal signal she'd rather not continue the conversation. Karen doesn't take the hint. That's nice, sweetie. What grade are you in? Do you like school? The questions come with the automatic assumption that school and basic pleasantries are the extent of topics appropriate for someone Amara's age. 9th grade. Yes, I do, Amara answers, keeping her responses minimal. In the window seat, 9A, an older black man named Mr. Raymond settles in. He's in his 70s, wearing a cardigan and reading glasses perched on his nose. He nods kindly at Amara, and she nods back, grateful he doesn't immediately start asking questions. The boarding process continues. More passengers file past, overhead bins slam shut, babies cry, and the flight attendants move through their safety preparations with the practiced efficiency of people who've done this thousands of times. Up in the cockpit, Captain Michael Torres, 52 years old with 28 years of flying experience, runs through his pre-flight checklist. He's a seasoned professional, the kind of pilot who exudes calm competence. Beside him, First Officer David Chen, 34, newer but highly capable, works through his own checklist. The two men work in practice synchronization, their voices calm and professional as they communicate with ground control. Atlantic 2847, you are cleared for pushback, comes the voice through their headsets. Captain Torres acknowledges, and the aircraft begins its slow backward movement from the gate. In the cabin, Jessica makes her way down the aisle one more time, doing a final check before takeoff. She stops at row 9 again. Sweetie, you'll need to put that book away for takeoff, okay? You can read it once we're in the air. Amara nods and tucks the book into the seat pocket, pulling out her phone instead and putting in earbuds. To anyone watching, she appears to be listening to music or maybe watching a video, like any teenager would. In reality, she's opened a flight simulator app, one far more sophisticated than typical mobile games. Her fingers move across the screen with practiced precision, running through emergency procedures in a simulated cockpit. Karen glances over and smiles indulgently, assuming the girl is playing games or texting friends. She has no idea that Amara is currently practicing a single-engine landing scenario, her mind processing approach speeds, flap configurations, and emergency checklists with the focus of a trained pilot. The aircraft pushes back, turns, and begins taxiing toward the runway. The familiar announcement comes over the speakers as flight attendants demonstrate safety procedures. Amara watches attentively, not with the glazed-over look most frequent flyers have, but with genuine attention. She notes the emergency exit locations, counts the rows between her seat and the nearest exit, and observes the door mechanisms. Her training, years of it, has taught her to always be aware, always be prepared. Mr. Raymond notices her attention and leans over slightly. First time flying, he asks kindly. No, sir, Amara responds. I've flown many times. I just like to pay attention to the safety briefing. He chuckles warmly. Smart girl. Most folks don't bother anymore. I'm Mr. Raymond, by the way. Amara, she says, shaking his offered hand with a firm grip that surprises him slightly. The engines roar to life as Captain Torres advances the throttles. The massive aircraft accelerates down the runway, the familiar sensation of speed and pressure building. At exactly the right moment, Torres pulls back on the yoke, and Flight 2847 lifts gracefully into the morning sky. Amara's eyes are closed, but not from fear. She's feeling every movement of the aircraft, mentally cataloging the climb rate, the engine sounds, the angle of ascent. In her mind, she's in the cockpit, her hands on the controls, executing the takeoff with the precision her father taught her. Her father. Captain James Jenkins, U.S. Air Force, retired. A man who had flown everything from cargo planes to fighter jets, who had served in combat zones and peacekeeping missions. A man who, from the time Amara could walk, had shared his love of aviation with his only daughter. She remembers being 6 years old, sitting on his lap in their home flight simulator, her tiny hands on the yoke while his larger hands guided hers. Feel that, baby girl, he would say. That's the plane telling you what it needs. You listen to it, and you'll always know what to do. By age 8, she could execute basic maneuvers. By 10, she was practicing emergency procedures. By 12, she had logged hundreds of hours in sophisticated flight simulators, under her father's careful instruction. He taught her not just how to fly, but how to handle every possible emergency. Engine failures, hydraulic problems, fire, decompression, weather. He made her practice scenarios over and over until her responses became instinctive. "You're too young to fly real planes yet," he would tell her, "but you're not too young to know how. Knowledge doesn't have an age requirement, Amara. When the time comes, you'll be ready." 2 years ago, Captain Jenkins had died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. One moment he was laughing at the dinner table, the next he was gone. Amara's world had shattered. Her mother, overwhelmed with grief and trying to hold their lives together, didn't realize that Amara had continued her father's lessons on her own. She studied his manuals, practiced on simulation software, watched endless hours of training videos. Flying kept her connected to him. Every procedure she mastered was a way of honoring his memory. Nobody knew. To her mother, her teachers, her friends, she was just a smart girl who liked science and got good grades. The depth of her aviation knowledge, the hours she spent preparing for a moment she hoped would never come, remained her secret. The aircraft levels off at its cruising altitude of 30,000 feet. The seatbelt sign dings off. Around Amara, passengers begin moving about, pulling out laptops, adjusting their positions, starting conversations. Jessica appears with the beverage cart. "What would you like to drink, honey?" she asks Amara with that same overly cheerful voice. "Apple juice, please," Amara says. Jessica hands her a small plastic cup with a napkin, the kind of automatic service she's provided thousands of times. Karen orders a coffee and immediately begins trying to engage Amara in conversation again. "So, do you play any sports?" "My daughter is in soccer and volleyball. She's very athletic." "I'm not really into sports," Amara responds politely. "I like science and computers." "Oh, that's nice," Karen says in a tone that suggests she finds this vaguely disappointing but is trying to be encouraging. "You could be a teacher or maybe work in an office someday. It's good to have skills with computers." Amara simply nods, not bothering to explain that her computer skills include programming complex flight simulation scenarios and understanding aircraft systems at a level that would surprise most people 3 times her age. The flight continues peacefully. Passengers doze, read, work on laptops, watch movies on their personal devices. The sky outside is brilliantly blue, with white clouds far below looking like a cotton field. The steady hum of the engines provides a constant background drone. In the cockpit, Captain Torres and First Officer Chen maintain their professional routine. They've been flying together for 6 months and have developed an easy working relationship. Torres reviews weather reports for Seattle while Chen monitors the aircraft systems. "Looking good," Chen says, scanning his instruments. "All systems normal. We should be on time, maybe even a few minutes early." Torres nods, reaching for his coffee cup. But as he brings it to his lips, something changes in his expression. His face suddenly goes pale. The cup slips from his fingers, splashing coffee across the center console. "Mike?" Chen glances over, concerned. "You okay?" Torres opens his mouth to respond, but no words come. His left hand goes to his chest, clutching. His breathing becomes rapid and shallow. "Mike!" Chen's voice rises with alarm. He reaches over, grabbing his captain's shoulder. Torres's eyes roll back. His body slumps forward against his harness, unconscious. "Oh God," Chen whispers, his heart hammering. He jabs at the call button for the flight attendants while simultaneously trying to check Torres's pulse. His hands shake as panic threatens to overwhelm his training. He's a competent pilot, but he's newer, less experienced, and the sudden loss of his captain at 30,000 feet with a plane full of passengers has just become his worst nightmare. The cockpit door opens. Jessica appears, takes one look at the unconscious captain, and her face goes white. What happened? I don't know. He just collapsed. I think it's his heart. Get help, get anyone with medical experience, now. Chen's voice is tight with controlled panic as he fights to stay focused. He needs to fly the plane, but he also needs help with Torres, and he's trying to process too many things at once. Jessica rushes back into the cabin, her professional composure cracking. Is anyone here a doctor? We have a medical emergency. We need a doctor. Passengers' heads snap up. Murmurs ripple through the cabin. A woman in row 14 raises her hand. I'm a nurse. She rushes forward, and Jessica guides her into the cockpit. In the cockpit, the nurse, Linda Rodriguez, quickly assesses Captain Torres. She checks his pulse, his breathing, his color. He's having a cardiac event, possibly a heart attack or stroke. I need to get him on the floor to perform CPR if needed. She looks at Chen with urgent eyes. Can you help me move him? Chen is torn between helping and staying at the controls. I can't leave the controls. Can you manage? Linda and Jessica struggle to maneuver Torres's unconscious body out of the captain's seat, a difficult task in the confined cockpit space. They finally get him onto the floor behind the seats. Linda immediately begins checking his vitals more thoroughly. Chen is now alone in the captain's seat, his hands gripping the yoke with white knuckles. Sweat beads on his forehead. He's flown this aircraft hundreds of times, but always with a captain beside him. Always with backup. Now he's alone, responsible for 187 passengers and crew, with a medical emergency happening feet behind him. He keys the radio. Seattle Center, Atlantic 2847, we have an emergency. Captain is incapacitated, medical emergency. First Officer Chen now in command, requesting priority handling and medical standing by in Seattle. The response comes back immediately, professional and calm. Atlantic 2847, Roger. Understand Captain incapacitated. You have priority. Maintain current altitude. Medical will be standing by. Can you continue to Seattle or do you need to divert? Chen's mind races. Seattle is still over an hour away. Diverting would mean finding a suitable airport, preparing for an approach he hasn't studied, dealing with unfamiliar territory. But continuing means staying alone in command for that entire time while managing the emergency. Atlantic 2847, continuing to Seattle, he decides. Better to stick with the plan, the airport he knows. Behind him, Linda works on Torres. He's breathing but his pulse is weak and irregular. I think he's had a major cardiac event. We need to get him to a hospital as quickly as possible. The reality crashes down on Chen. He's not just flying a plane anymore. A man's life depends on how quickly he can get them on the ground. But he can't rush. He can't make mistakes. He has to fly the approach perfectly, land safely, get everyone down in one piece. His hands tremble slightly on the controls. He takes deep breaths, trying to center himself, trying to remember his training. But a voice in his head keeps whispering doubts. What if I mess up? What if I can't do this alone? What if something else goes wrong? Jessica emerges from the cockpit, her face ashen. She gathers the other flight attendants, explains the situation in hushed tones. Then she takes a deep breath and picks up the PA microphone. Her voice comes over the speakers, trying to sound calm but with an edge of barely controlled fear. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jessica, your lead flight attendant. We're experiencing a medical emergency with one of our pilots. The first officer is fully capable of landing the aircraft safely, but we need to ask if there is anyone on board with flight experience, anyone who has pilot training or experience flying aircraft. If so, please press your call button immediately. The cabin erupts. Passengers look at each other with wide eyes. Murmurs become excited talking. People crane their necks, looking around to see if anyone will respond. The comfortable routine of a normal flight has shattered into naked fear. Oh my God, Karen says, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God, what's happening? Are we going to crash? Mr. Raymond puts a steadying hand on his armrest. Stay calm. The first officer can handle this. We'll be fine. But Amara is already moving. Her heart pounds, but not with fear, with purpose. Everything her father taught her, every hour she spent preparing, has led to this moment. She knows what she can do. She knows she can help. She stands up, her small frame seeming almost fragile in the aisle. She takes a deep breath. And then she screams at the top of her lungs, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. I can fly. The cabin falls into shocked silence. Every head turns toward row 9. They see a teenage black girl, barely 5 feet tall, with a purple hoodie and an UM tag, standing in the aisle with her hand raised. For a moment, nobody moves. Nobody speaks. They just stare. Then the reactions begin. A man in row 7 laughs, a harsh, disbelieving sound. Are you kidding? This is not the time for games, kid. Karen grabs Amara's arm. Honey, sit down. The adults will handle this. You're scared, but making jokes doesn't help. I'm not joking, Amara says firmly, pulling her arm free. Her voice is steady, mature, nothing like the quiet child she'd been before. I have extensive flight training. I can help. Sweetie, this is serious, another passenger says, his tone dismissive. Real pilots are needed, not kids who've played flight simulator games. But Mr. Raymond is looking at Amara with new eyes. He saw how she watched the safety briefing. He saw the focus in her eyes. Let her speak, he says quietly. Jessica pushes through the aisle, her expression torn between hope and disbelief. She looks at this young girl, this child she'd been patronizing with sweetie and honey all morning, and tries to reconcile that image with what she's hearing. You can fly? Jessica asks, her voice uncertain. Like, actually fly? Not just in video games. Yes, Amara says, meeting her eyes with unwavering confidence. My father was Captain James Jenkins, U.S. Air Force. He trained me for years. I've logged over 600 hours on advanced flight simulators, including full cockpit procedures for commercial aircraft like this 737. I know emergency protocols, I know systems, and I know I can help your first officer. The cabin erupts again. Some passengers scoff. Others look frightened that this might actually be their best option. A few look at Amara with dawning respect. This is insane, a businessman shouts. We're supposed to trust our lives to a kid? What kind of airline is this? She's just a child, another woman cries. How can she possibly know what she's talking about? But Jessica is looking at Amara's eyes, seeing something there she hadn't noticed before. Competence, knowledge, confidence, she makes a split-second decision. Come with me, she says. Amara follows Jessica toward the cockpit, and as they pass, passengers reach out, some trying to stop them, others wanting reassurance. You can't be serious. This is crazy. What are her qualifications? The questions and protests follow them forward. They reach the cockpit. Chen looks up as they enter, his face showing the strain of managing everything alone. He sees Jessica and a teenage girl, and confusion flashes across his features. This is Amara, Jessica says quickly. She says she can help. She says she knows how to fly. Chen's first reaction is disbelief. What? No. I don't have time for this. I need someone with actual flight experience, not, he stops himself, but the implication hangs in the air. Amara steps forward, her voice calm and professional. First Officer Chen, my name is Amara Jenkins, daughter of Captain James Jenkins, U.S. Air Force, retired. I have over 600 hours on commercial flight simulators including full procedure training on 737 platforms. I can read instruments, I understand flight systems, and I know emergency protocols. I'm not offering to fly the aircraft. I'm offering to be your co-pilot, to handle secondary tasks so you can focus on flying. Let me help you. Chen stares at her, his mind reeling. Every instinct says this is crazy. She's a child. But his hands are shaking, he's overwhelmed, and he desperately needs help. You know what these instruments mean? He asks, gesturing at the panel. Airspeed indicator, attitude indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, heading indicator, turn coordinator. Amara rattles off, pointing to each in sequence. You're at 30,000 feet, airspeed 485 knots, heading 285 degrees. You're on autopilot currently, which is good. Engine parameters are normal. Fuel is approximately 60%. Chen's mouth falls open. She's right. On everything. You see that switch? Amara points. That's your hydraulic system selector. That panel shows electrical systems. If you need me to adjust frequency on the radio or read back checklists, I can do that. If you need someone to monitor while you handle the approach, I can do that. Please, let me help. Linda, still working on Torres, looks up. First officer, you need help. Take it where you can get it. Chen makes his decision. Sit down, he tells Amara, gesturing to the jump seat behind him. You're not touching controls, but you can be my extra eyes and ears. Jessica, get back to the cabin and keep everyone calm. Amara sits, her eyes scanning the instruments with practiced efficiency. She knows this cockpit. Not this exact aircraft, but this type. She's studied it, simulated it, prepared for it. Talk me through what's happening, she says to Chen, her voice professional. Captain collapsed about 10 minutes ago. Possible heart attack or stroke. I'm maintaining current altitude, continuing to Seattle. I've declared an emergency. But His voice cracks slightly, I'm not sure I can do this alone. I've never landed without a captain before. You can do this, Amara says firmly. You're trained for it. You know every procedure. I'm here to back you up. Let's go through the approach plan step by step. It'll help you focus. Chen looks at this 14-year-old girl and sees, incredibly, a calm center in the storm. He takes a deep breath and nods. Okay. Okay. Seattle approach, will be coming from the east, they'll likely vector us for a straight in to runway 16 right. Good, Amara says. Weather conditions. Chen checks. Clear, winds from the northwest at 12 knots. Good conditions. Excellent. Before you start descent, we'll run the approach checklist together. I'll read, you verify. We'll do it slowly and carefully. No rush. We have time. Back in the cabin, chaos continues. Jessica and the other flight attendants are trying to maintain calm, but passengers are frightened, argumentative, demanding answers. How can you let a child in the cockpit? One man demands. Who is she? What are her credentials? Another asks. Karen is in tears. We're all going to die because some girl thinks she knows how to fly from video games. But Mr. Raymond stands up, his voice carrying authority. Everyone, please. That young lady demonstrated more knowledge in 30 seconds than most of us have about flying. She's not flying the plane. She's assisting a qualified pilot. Let them do their job. In the cockpit, Chen and Amara work through preparations. She reads checklists while he executes them. Her calm, professional demeanor helps center him. When his hands shake, her steady voice guides him back to focus. Fuel state, she asks. Sufficient for landing with reserves, he responds. Hydraulics? Normal. Electrical? Normal. They continue through every system, every check, methodically preparing for the approach. Amara watches the instruments, calling out any changes, helping Chen maintain situational awareness while he manages the aircraft. Seattle Center comes back on the radio. Atlantic 2847, you're 30 miles from Seattle, maintain altitude, expect vectors for approach shortly. Chen acknowledges, and Amara sees his shoulders tense. This is it, he murmurs. You've got this, Amara says quietly. Just like you've done 1,000 times before. Fly the plane. I'm right here. The controller vectors them for approach. Chen disengages the autopilot, taking manual control. The aircraft responds to his inputs, beginning a gentle descent. Amara monitors altitude, airspeed, calling out any deviations from target parameters. Speed is good, 250 knots. Altitude descending through 25,000. Rate of descent 1,500 feet per minute, looking good. Chen's confidence begins to build. She's right. He knows this. He's trained for this. He can do this. As they descend through the clouds, Seattle appears below, the city spreading out with Puget Sound gleaming in the sunlight. The airport is visible in the distance, its runways like gray ribbons on the ground. Gear down, Chen calls, moving the lever. The landing gear extends with a solid thunk. 3 green lights, Amara confirms, checking the indicators. Gear down and locked. Flaps 15, Chen calls. Amara verifies. Flaps 15, speed is good. They continue the approach, descending steadily. The runway grows larger in the windscreen. Chen's hands are steadier now, his focus complete. Amara continues her calm callouts, monitoring everything, giving him the support he needs. 500 feet, she says. Airspeed 145 knots. On glide path. 200 feet, looking good. 100 feet. 50.30.20. 10. The main wheels kiss the runway with barely a bump. Chen pulls the thrust reversers, and the aircraft decelerates smoothly. They're down. They're safe. As the plane taxis to the gate where emergency vehicles wait with lights flashing, Chen exhales a shaky breath. We did it, he whispers. You did it, Amara corrects with a small smile. You flew that approach perfectly. I just helped. Emergency medical personnel rush aboard the moment the doors open. They quickly load Captain Torres onto a stretcher and hurry him to a waiting ambulance. Linda follows, providing information about his condition. Chen stands on shaky legs, suddenly feeling the weight of what just happened. He looks at Amara, really looks at her, seeing not a child but a fellow aviator who helped save his crew and passengers. Thank you, he says simply. I don't know how to, thank you doesn't seem enough. Amara nods, suddenly feeling very young again. The adrenaline is fading, and exhaustion is setting in. You're welcome, First Officer Chen. Tell Captain Torres I hope he recovers quickly. Passengers begin deplaning, many of them looking at Amara with new eyes. Some approach to thank her. Others simply stare, trying to process what they witnessed. Karen from row 9B approaches, her face flushed with embarrassment. I'm sorry, she says to Amara. I underestimated you. Thank you for what you did. It's okay, Amara says graciously. A lot of people underestimate me. I'm used to it. Mr. Raymond shakes her hand firmly. Your father would be very proud of you, young lady. Tears prick Amara's eyes at the mention of her father. Thank you, she whispers. That means a lot. As Amara finally makes her way off the aircraft, she's met by airline officials, airport security, and a swarm of people with questions. The story is already spreading. The teenage girl who helped land a plane, the unaccompanied minor who turned out to be anything but ordinary. Later that evening, after giving statements, after the interviews and the chaos, Amara finally reaches her aunt's house in Seattle. She collapses on the couch, emotionally and physically exhausted. Her mother calls, having heard the news. Amara, baby, are you okay? I can't believe what happened. I had no idea you knew so much about flying. Dad taught me, Amara says softly. I kept studying after he died. I wanted to make him proud. Oh, sweetheart, her mother's voice breaks. He would be so proud. I'm so proud. You saved all those people. First Officer Chen saved them, Amara insists. I just helped him stay focused. That's what Dad would have wanted. Over the next days and weeks, the story spreads. Amara becomes a brief media sensation, the young black girl who helped land a plane at 30,000 feet. Some praise her. Others critique the situation, arguing a child should never have been put in that position. Aviation experts debate the protocols and procedures. Captain Torres recovers, though he'll never fly again. He sends Amara a letter thanking her and telling her that her father would have burst with pride. Chen stays in touch, sending her updates and encouragement, telling her that when she's old enough, she'll make an incredible pilot. But for Amara, the most important moment comes weeks later, when she's back home, sitting at her father's old desk with his aviation manuals spread around her. She's studying for her private pilot's license, which she'll be eligible for in a few years. She traces her fingers over his handwriting in the margins of his books, his notes and annotations. I did it, Dad, she whispers to the empty room. I listened to the plane, just like you taught me. I stayed calm. I used what you gave me. And it mattered. It really mattered. Outside, the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere above, aircraft trace contrails across the heavens, carrying people to their destinations, pilots at the controls fulfilling the ancient human dream of flight. And in that room, a young black girl who the world had underestimated continues to study, continues to prepare, continues to honor her father's legacy. Because she learned that day at 30,000 feet that expertise has nothing to do with age or appearance. It has everything to do with preparation, knowledge, and the courage to stand up and say, I can help, when lives depend on it. The altitude of courage isn't measured in feet above the ground. It's measured in the willingness to be underestimated, to be doubted, and to prove through calm competence that you belong exactly where you are. Amara Jenkins learned to fly from her father. But she learned something even more important that day on Flight 2847, she learned that her voice matters, her knowledge matters, and she has the power to make a difference in the world. 6 months after the emergency landing, Amara receives an invitation that changes everything. The Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board, after reviewing the incident thoroughly, invite her to speak at the annual Aviation Safety Conference in Washington, D.C. She's nervous but accepts, knowing her father would want her to share what she learned. Standing on that stage in front of hundreds of pilots, aviation officials, and industry leaders, Amara tells her story. She talks about her father's training, about the hours spent in simulators, about keeping that knowledge hidden because she didn't think anyone would take a teenage girl seriously. She describes the moment she stood up on Flight 2847, the disbelief in people's eyes, the assumptions they made. I was invisible until the moment I became useful, she tells the audience, her voice steady and clear. People saw my age, my gender, my race, and they made decisions about what I could and couldn't know. That almost cost them their lives. If First Officer Chen hadn't been willing to look past what he expected to see, if he hadn't been desperate enough to accept help from an unexpected source, the outcome might have been very different. The audience is silent, absorbing her words. She continues, my father used to tell me that the sky doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your background, your appearance, or anyone's expectations. The sky only cares about one thing, do you have the knowledge and skill to be there? That's the standard we should all hold ourselves to. Not assumptions. Not stereotypes. Just capability. After her speech, she's approached by dozens of people. Airline captains who shake her hand with respect. Young aspiring pilots, especially young women and girls of color, who thank her for showing them what's possible, aviation school directors who offer her scholarships for when she's ready to pursue her commercial pilot's license. But the most meaningful moment comes when an older white-haired man approaches. He introduces himself as Captain Richard Whitmore, a veteran pilot with 40 years of experience. My daughter Karen was in seat 9B on your flight, he says, his eyes misty. She called me that night, crying, telling me how wrong she'd been about you. She said you taught her something important about judging people. She wanted me to thank you, not just for helping save the plane, but for teaching her a lesson she should have learned long ago. Amara smiles gently. Please tell her thank you for being willing to learn. That's what matters most. Captain Whitmore nods, then adds, I'm on the board of the Women in Aviation Scholarship Committee. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship for flight training when you turn 16. Your father's legacy deserves to continue, and so does yours. Tears spring to Amara's eyes. He would love that, she whispers. Thank you. That evening, Amara sits in her hotel room with her mother, who had flown out to support her. They look at photos of Captain James Jenkins in his Air Force uniform, his smile bright and proud. He's watching, baby, her mother says softly. He's so proud of you. I know I haven't always understood your passion for flying, but I see it now. I see how it connects you to him. It's more than that now, Mom, Amara replies thoughtfully. It's about showing people what's possible. How many other kids out there have knowledge and skills that nobody recognizes because of how they look or how old they are? How many voices are being ignored when they could be making a difference? Her mother pulls her close. Then you keep speaking up, sweetheart. You keep showing them. 2 years later, on her 16th birthday, Amara walks onto the tarmac at a local flight school. Today is the day she'll take her first actual flight lesson in a real aircraft, not a simulator. Her instructor, a woman named Captain Maria Santos, greets her with a warm smile and a firm handshake. Ready to touch the real sky? Captain Santos asks. Amara looks up at the small training aircraft, its white wings gleaming in the sunlight. She thinks of her father, of Flight 2847, of all the people who doubted her and all the people who believed. She thinks of the young girls who've written her letters saying she inspired them to pursue their dreams despite what others say. Yes, she says with quiet confidence. I'm ready. As they climb into the cockpit, Captain Santos goes through the pre-flight checks. But then she does something unexpected. She turns to Amara and says, you know what? You've probably logged more simulator hours than some of my other students will in their entire training. You've been in a real emergency situation. You've proven yourself under pressure that would break most people. So today, from the very beginning, I'm treating you like the pilot you already are. Not a child. Not a student who needs things simplified. A fellow aviator, deal? Amara's smile could light up the sky. Deal. They taxi to the runway, and as the little plane accelerates down the pavement, Amara feels her father's presence as clearly as if he were sitting beside her. She can almost hear his voice, feel that, baby girl. That's the plane telling you what it needs. The aircraft lifts off, and for the first time in her life, Amara is truly flying. Not in a simulator. Not as an emergency assistant. But as a pilot, hands on the controls, commanding her craft through the air with the skill and confidence her father had given her. Below, the world spreads out in miniature. Roads like ribbons, houses like toys, people going about their lives unaware that above them, a young black girl who had once been invisible is soaring through the clouds, writing her own story across the sky. She banks the aircraft gently, feeling the responsive controls, the power of flight at her fingertips. This is who she is. This is who she's always been. It just took 30,000 feet and a moment of crisis for the world to see it. But now they know. And more importantly, she knows. She knows that her voice has power, her knowledge has value, and her dreams have wings. As she levels out at altitude, the sun breaking through the clouds in golden rays, Amara Jenkins smiles and whispers into the wind, "Thanks, Dad. I'm flying now. Really flying. And I'm never coming down." The sky welcomes her home.